Welcome to the AI Research Roundup. I'm Alex. Today we are looking at a paper trending on X, published on December 3rd, 2025, about 5 days ago. This paper introduces the Treasury Proof Ledger, a Bitcoin-anchored cryptographic framework that lets big holders of Bitcoin prove their complex, multi-domain treasuries are sound and policy-compliant, without revealing sensitive trading details. The paper is titled, The Treasury Proof Ledger, a Cryptographic Framework for Accountable Bitcoin Treasuries. And as we will see later, the approach could reshape how institutional Bitcoin transparency and regulation work. The introduction sketched why treasuries need more than simple proof of reserves, and Table 1 now contrasts existing tools with this new framework. Standard proofs of reserves and provision-style schemes only show one-time snapshots and ignore full multi-domain treasury state. Certificate transparency-style logs give append-only histories, but they work per object, not per treasury. The TPL column combines explicit multi-domain state, conservation across domains, and policy-defined stakeholder views, so it supports cross-institution exposure checks tied to Bitcoin's fixed supply cap. Alright, Table 1 contrasted capabilities in abstract, and Figure 1 now traces how a single treasury-proof ledger interval actually runs end-to-end. The figure shows raw treasury events, like deposits or trades, flowing into proof-of-transit commitments. These commitments then feed a snapshot with reports and metadata, which is finally anchored on Bitcoin as a compact transaction. From that anchored history, policy-based views for different observers are derived without touching internal raw data. Well, Figure 1 showed how one interval of logging works, and Table 2 now spells out what guarantees that pipeline is meant to deliver. The left column lists deployment goals like exposure soundness, policy completeness, non-equivocation, and privacy compatibility. The right column explains that some, like non-equivocation and forward integrity, are fully realized through the hash-chained ledger and Bitcoin anchoring. Others, like exposure soundness and privacy, only have restricted proofs under specific policies, which the authors flag as open directions for future work. So Table 3 drills into what each formal guarantee actually rests on. The conservation across domains result depends mainly on the internal balance update rule and some basic modeling assumptions. Non-equivocation and forward integrity rely on unforgeable proof of transit logs and a collision-resistant hash function, so past records cannot be rewritten. View correctness holds as long as policies are deterministic and stateless, while the stronger exposure soundness and privacy results require extra conditions, like faithful exposure policies, minimal non-collusion, and zero-knowledge style protections around proofs and signatures. So, Table 3 connected security guarantees to underlying assumptions, and Table 4 now shows how concrete stakeholder policies might look in practice. Public investors only see time-bucketed changes in net Bitcoin exposure, with coarse labels and long disclosure lags, so market sensitivity stays protected. Regulators gain per domain and per counterparty aggregates, including encumbrance and concentration measures, with shorter delays. External auditors receive the richest view, covering nearly all events and detailed aggregates, with very short lags and low materiality thresholds, so full reconciliations become possible. Alright. Table 7 translates the stylized treasury into concrete resource costs. The left column lists quantities like total proof-of-transit events per year, how many events are packed into each Bitcoin anchor, and how many anchors occur over T years. The middle column gives ballpark values, for example about 20,000 events per year and roughly 1,700 per anchor. The right column explains that this corresponds to just one small OP return transaction per month and modest on-chain data and fee ranges, which keeps deployment well within normal corporate budgets. The big takeaway is that Treasury Proof Ledger turns scattered proof of reserves tools into a single Bitcoin-anchored ledger that tracks complex treasury exposures while enforcing policy-aware views for different stakeholders. Longer term, this could underwrite supply-wide checks against Bitcoin's hard cap. That is it for this episode of the AI Research Roundup. I am Alex. Thanks for listening.